Hey everyone, this is Solar Cat here, and I know I haven't made a video in a long time. I think on this channel I don't even have a video, but there's something I gotta bring up. It's like something I gotta fucking rant about it. And by the way, this is gonna there's gonna be tons of cussing in this. It's because it's a very serious thing, and it sucks. Like it really fucking sucks. So, Nintendo lately, oh my gosh, like where do I even start with them? Um, well, this shit is fucking ridiculous. So, one of the biggest things is them obviously charging between 80 to $90 and then plus tax, you're going to be paying for some of these Switch 2 games. I mean, some of them are going to be close to $100. That is fucking insanity. Like it's insane. Like you're paying $100 for a game that, and by the way, it's going to come on this key card thing, and there's tons of issues with that. They seem to be pushing more towards digital, and it's like, oh yeah, well, technically it's a cartridge. It's like, well, no, it's almost the same thing as a code in a box. They just have a cartridge so that they could say that it's a cartridge, but it's not worth it. And and there are people that are better like going into details about explaining how the whole digital key card thing works, but it's not good, and it's really bad and horrible for preservation, and it's pushing things more towards digital, and there's a lot of issues with that. But there are a few people calling Nintendo out on this, like even some Nintendo fans. There's a guy with a channel, he goes by Nintendeen, with Deen, Nintendeen, and he might be a Nintendo fan, but he's not a Nintendo fan boy. And I shouldn't even really have to explain the difference between the two, in terms of like whether you're a fan or a fanboy. Fanboys will defend anything and everything that Nintendo does, and I find them to be really cringe, and they're like bootlickers basically. But yeah, I highly recommend Nintendo, and he's a good channel. He's an honest Nintendo fan, and he seems pretty cool, like just a cool dude all around. And he still makes some Nintendo fan content, but I think you can be a fan of like some of the worlds that inhabit their games. You could be a fan of some of the company's work, especially that they put out in the past, without being a fan of their current business, and extremely anti-consumer practices. Like it's insane to me. Like just crazy to me how fucking anti-consumer Nintendo's gotten. Like it's insane. See, I'm looking through all my bullet points. Like there's a lot of things that Nintendo has done that's not good. Um, does anybody remember Mario 3D All Stars? Holy crap! Like the way that they treated that, which it was time gated, like and you're not really able to get it now because it was a limited release, and they were basically just lazy ports, or like what's effectively a ROM dump of the original games without any updates or without any improved features. It was like emulation, and you could even set up something on your computer in terms of emulation that will run that stuff better, you know. And by the way, before I get further into emulation, because that's going to be another big talking point with this, but before I get further into that, like let me just say, I'm not talking necessarily about sailing the seven seas. I mean, do what you want to do. Google is your friend. I mean, I'm not going to help with any of that stuff. But I mean, obviously, there are fully legal ways to emulate and ROM dump and certain things that, like in terms of what you own. But that's all I'm going to say on that. I just put that out there. It's kind of a disclaimer because I kind of need to say that shit, or at least I feel like I need to. But But yeah, I'm not talking about doing anything that's not necessarily above board. I'm not even talking about that when I talk emulation. But I think emulation is going to be an extremely important thing, and especially in the months to come. And I think that what Nintendo is doing lately, they're setting this precedent. And I've just heard recently that Xbox, they're going to start doing $80 games now too. Maybe in certain cases $90. I don't know. Either way, I think anything above, like me personally, like it's way better to use something like Steam and stuff. And I don't really consider myself a fanboy or an elitist when it comes to like the PC, but honestly, dude, like the deals are better there. And then you get more versatility, and it's like, yeah, there might be a bit more setup or slight bit of hassle just to like set up certain things, but it's really easy. It's not even that big of a deal. And then the deals that you get on Steam, like yeah, I mean the ones for Nintendo, like those deals are ridiculous if you can call them deals. And I'm not talking like, obviously I'm not talking the indie stuff because that does get discounted, but I'm talking first party titles for Nintendo. It's like they really they fucking suck when it comes to that. Like things never go on sale. Like one of their first party games, one or two of them might, like on Black Friday or something, like they might go on sale for a little bit cheaper or the price that it should have been to begin with, or like after a year or two of it already being out, like this game that could be like, 5 or more years old. It's just ridiculous. So Nintendo hasn't put any effort into like that kind of stuff, especially with Mario 3D All Stars. They used the base version of Mario 64. There were no updates at all. And again, you're paying for that, and it's a time limit thing, and they created artificial scarcity with that, which is really fucked up. And then on top of that, this is a company, and this is really important to note, but they have a history of shutting down like all of their eShops, the Wii, the Wii U, the DS, the 3DS, the DSi, all of this stuff they've shut down. And the fact that they're pushing this shit towards digital, it's like, I think that there's people that may not even know about their history of shutting down these digital storefronts and shops and removing access completely to it. There might be a fair amount of people that do know about that, but I'm sure there's people that don't. And it's just like, you got to be aware of that. In terms of what it means for game preservation, it's really bad. But yeah, it's just like, it's ridiculous. And as far as I've noticed, like you can't even get refunds on any Nintendo products. Now again, on Steam, and again, I don't want to come off as like a PC elitist. To be honest, my laptop kind of sucks, and I haven't even used Steam for like maybe even like a full year. I don't know. Like I use it very seldomly because I have a PS5 and a Switch myself, and then I also have a retro like emulation kind of system, like console. It's like an Ambernic device. So I've been playing stuff on that. My laptop sucks. I don't use it for anything except for like, paperwork or certain things like that. But I do want to get a new computer. But my point is I'm not a PC fanboy, but honestly, I see it as the better option. And with Steam, you can actually refund stuff, which, that kind of helps to, like, if Nintendo did that, it would kind of help to cushion the blow, so to speak, for how much they're charging, and the fact that it's like, well, you might permanently lose access to these games because they have a storied history of that. Uh, but not only that, but the way they treat fan projects, AM2R, Smash World Tour Tournament, and then not only fan projects, but they also copyrighted or trademarked or something with this thing called the Insanity system in Eternal Darkness. Like they trademarked a game mechanic there. They trademarked another one for Pokemon, so because they've been trying to go after Pal World lately. And by the way, Pal World's doing the whole monster collecting thing in a much more interesting and innovative way than Nintendo's being. I would argue that Nintendo used to be pretty innovative, but now they're certainly not. Yeah, I mean now it's like they have, certain gimmicks, but a lot of what they're advertising, especially for the Switch 2, it's shit that's been not only been done before but been done better. I mean the game chat shit, like the game chat is so ridiculous because with Discord or hell, even Skype, it's it it's better with that. And on top of it, you don't have to pay a fucking fee. But Nintendo, it's like, well, you're gonna pay us, and then they want you to pay for a tech demo on top of it. Something that, you look at the PS5, Astro's Playroom, like that was free, and it was just this cool little tech demo, and it's like, well, this kind of shows you like the features, like what the console can do, and you could have like maybe 30 minutes or so of fun in this little platform, and it was kind of cool. And then now they have this Switch to Welcome Tour, but you got to pay for it, and also it's digital, so it's just like it's so damn anti-consumer, and this is what like the welcome software or whatever you want to call it. It comes with the system. Of course, in this case, I don't even think it does come with the system, but like I know that the one on PS5 is like, that's your first experience of the console. Well, if your first experience with the Switch 2 is that, like, oh, you have to pay a fee for this cheap little tech demo, which, by the way, looks worse than Astor's Playroom did. It's like, is it really fucking worth it? No, it's not. But yeah, so they trademarked the Insanity system from Eternal Darkness. I mean, I know that certain companies kind of have found little ways to, around that in certain ways. Like, in Elden Ring, you have frenzy instead of insanity. But in my opinion, a game mechanic should not be able to be trademarked, like, or copyrighted or whatever it is. It's just ridiculous. I think that Nintendo, it's like they don't want to innovate and they churn out the shit. In a lot of ways, Nintendo is essentially the Disney of video games. Just with the way they treat their fans, the way they treat their franchises. They don't innovate, they rehash stuff. Like freaking remakes and remasters, all that shit. It's ridiculous. And in terms of like my family members, I know one of them or some of them, like they have a Switch, but both them and myself, we didn't get it on launch or anything. We waited, but Nintendo was kind of like the go-to, like, well, this is an option that's kind of affordable. It's more of a family friendly, affordable option. You know what I mean? But now, and some people are like, oh, well, the only issue is the price of the games, not the price of the console. And it's like, well, no, the price of the console is a problem too. Because again, and even if you're trying to say, oh, well, it's more powerful, it's like, well, people don't give a shit about, like, oh, well, you could play 120 FPS on a Nintendo game. It's like, do you really give a shit about, for instance, Animal Crossing, like playing that shit in 120 FPS? No, nobody cares. And me personally, even though I play games on a PS5, which has pretty high end FPS itself, it's like, even with that, I honestly don't notice, like, sometimes over 50 FPS, I don't notice as much. And then once you get to like 60 or whatever, it's like, but 120, it's like, I don't really care. I don't give a shit about that. I really don't. But it's just ridiculous. And and then you want to look at um like they shut down a fucking tournament at one point because I think that they were, and I might be wrong on this. I need to look this up again, but I believe it has something to do with at this tournament they were using some kind of emulated like front end to do the tournament to make the netcode function better because Nintendo's netcode fucking sucks. Which to to me as somebody that has played numerous fighters, and I'm not even that much into fighting games, but you play any other fighting game and then you play Smash Brothers and you notice it. You notice how laggy it is. You notice how like the peer to peer, the and the netcode itself, like it's completely broken and just not working and it's laggy. There's input delay on top of having just piss poor netcode. And Nintendo gets away with it. Like any other fighting game or franchise, like you have to have good netcode. You have to be able to play. It's like especially with fighting games, it's like like you need to be able to respond like quickly and do those inputs quickly. In my opinion, it's completely inexcusable for a fighting game, and their matchmaking's fucking terrible as well. But I've tried to play it before, and I I I think that the concept of Smash Brothers it is pretty cool. There's things I like about it, but the net code and the input lag it completely kills it for me. It detracts from the experience. I just can't do it. Like I can't, and the way that the fans defend it, it's just like they haven't played other fighting games. I guess I don't know, but it's out. It's completely outdated, and they've had plenty of time to fix it. They just don't want to do it. And then getting into like issues with their controllers because we've already talked about the input delay. But beyond that, the Joy Cons, like they're known to inexplicably develop stick drift. And from what I've noticed, it's like I've gone through a couple of them, and lately I'm not even playing the Switch as much as like some of the other stuff. But yeah, like they're pretty freaking bad. And like they develop stick drift like at a faster rate than even something like the PS4 controls, which were pretty bad, or PS5. I've had issues with one PS5 controller, but overwhelmingly, like the Switch Joy Cons is like they're they're some of the worst controllers I think ever for like a mainline kind of console. Like holy shit, they're pretty bad. Yeah, and then they're advertising at the Switch too. It's like, well, now you could use it for like a mouse or whatever, and it's just like, like again, that's super gimmicky. Like most people don't play Nintendo games because they want to use the controller like a mouse, And again, that's a gimmicky thing. That's another thing, beyond the game chat that it's like, well, we're just copying stuff from other things. So it's ridiculous. I also want to talk about their storefront. I mean, aside from them completely shutting them down and having a history of that, the storefront, if you've ever loaded that up on the Switch, the Switch One, it's fucking horrible. And like scrolling down, it hangs, like it freezes up, it lags, and it's like this is a multi-billion-dollar company. They can't figure out a basic ass fucking storefront. Like, give me a fucking break, And the fanboys for Nintendo, it's like, and one of the things they're trying to say is like, well, this has really good specs now. The Nintendo 2 is going to have good specs. It's like, you guys never gave a shit about specs before, And I get that. It's like because normally, like I said, it should be a family-friendly, affordable console option. So why would people give a shit about like high end specs and then make that the excuse that it costs more because it's higher spec? Which honestly, a lot of what I saw in the demo, some of that shit could be run on the PS3, and like I mean, heck, even Cyberpunk, which it's like, yeah, it's really cool that you can run it on a handheld, but I mean, shoot, the ROG Ally could do that anyways, and so can the Switch. Although my understanding is the Switch has some issues with it, but even so, it's like it's like okay, it's still a PS4 game, which I mean that's cool, but I don't think that's what a lot of people would get a Switch 2 for, honestly. You know, so let's see. I've talked about the eShop. Their whole virtual console, like you're paying for the ability to emulate a limited selection of certain games on certain systems, and then certain ones you have to pay an even higher subscription tier for. And by the way, it's all digital, so it could be axed, just like the other stuff too. Fuck that, you know. Yeah, it's nuts. I don't want to pay like 90, 80, like 70, 80, $90 plus tax, almost $100 a pop, fuck that. Like they're so anti-preservation and anti-consumer, and they want to fight emulation and it's just because like emulation does it better than fucking Nintendo, you know. So they sell gimmicks. They don't innovate as much as they used to, and they're ripping off other system. This is all stuff I'd already mentioned. Yeah, and then their presentation, I thought it was funny how their presentation for the game chat, it was so choppy. Like that was funny too. But the leadership, they are so tone deaf. Iowata, he passed away, God rest his soul. And Reggie, like he was honestly a great spokesperson. He felt like he actually cared, like he actually gave a shit. But he left Nintendo. And he's even on records saying, and I quote, "This isn't the same Nintendo that I left." And recently, he actually criticized the fact about them charging money for that tech demo. And like I said, it looks like it's going to be even more bare bones than Astro's Playroom. But yeah, as far as this Doug Bowser guy, he's the new face of Nintendo. Basically, he's like the current CEO or president or whatever. I find it funny that his last name is Bowser. And by the way, he also is a former EA executive, which yeah, that explains a lot of shit. But Doug Bowser, he admitted that the Switch 2 prices were decided on long before the tariffs. It's just another indicator among many of pure greed. A lot of people are still like they're still going to blame the tariffs. They're still going to blame the current administration because it's the trendy thing to do that shit. But it's obviously not the reason. It comes down to greed, and tariffs don't affect digital goods anyways. You know, but people don't really think about that shit, and some people, it's like they just want to make excuses for Nintendo consistently and defend them and bootlick, and it's just like it's pathetic. It's like you guys got to realize that Nintendo doesn't give a shit. Like they care about your money, they care about your wallet. But Doug Bowser, like he was like, oh well, if you can't afford a Switch 2, there's still an option for a Switch 1. Yeah, you peasant. Like it's ridiculous. And they're just like, well, you're gonna buy our shit anyways. So to the fanboys, that defend everything Nintendo does, do you guys have zero self-respect? You obviously got no self-control. I mean, if I've seen people that it's like, well, I don't really agree with it, but I'm still gonna buy it. Like I'm still gonna pre-order this, and and there's people that are like, oh, well, I still criticize them, and it's like, yeah, but you say you're gonna pre-order and you're gonna buy all their stuff, despite the $80 to $90 games, and despite the fact that honestly you can get a much better deal with the Steam Deck, because even though some people are saying, oh, it's not going to be quite as powerful as the Switch 2, and it's like It doesn't matter. You could emulate shit, including Switch 1 games on it. But you could emulate the entirety of the Switch, like of Nintendo's current catalog on that, and you could do so quite easily on top of other systems, on top of having PC games, you know, and on top of being able to do shit, you know, like that you can do with a PC. Oh, I don't like it's a much bigger hassle. No, it's really not. It's really not. Like setting that stuff up isn't really that much effort. So yeah, I mean, I think if it's not obvious, I'm planning on either getting a Steam Deck or an ROG Ally X. I'm probably gonna go with the ROG Ally X because I have at this point I have enough saved up to where I can, and that thing is gonna be a total beast. Like that could do basically anything, and it's gonna be leagues above the Switch 2 anyways. I know it's more expensive, but you know you're not gonna be paying 80 to 90 frickin' dollars per game. See, what did I mean, I kind of touched on the digital key cards, but I got to make it clear how really bad they are. And apparently, there's more controversy that came out, and I have to look more into it. But apparently, Nintendo lied, or they lied by omission of certain facts in regards to things with the key cards, and that you're still going to need an internet connection for what they kind of advertise as like physical games, but it's not a physical game. You know, by all intents and purposes, and it's just ridiculous. There's only so many ways I could say fuck Nintendo, but seriously, fuck Nintendo. Seriously, and I don't know how people could still defend them at this point. If you're still defending them, and I've seen people like Arlo, which initially he was putting all the blame on tariffs, which I've already gone into why that's so misguided. Yeah, including the digital goods, which again aren't affected. But it's like, yeah, but even him, like recently he came out with something and he's like starting to actually question some shit. I still don't respect him because he's still a complete Nintendo simp and he still constantly makes tons of excuses, but he's like, well, this is pretty legitimately bad. And it's like, well, then call him out on him. Call Nintendo out on that shit. But yeah, I mean that's all I have to say. This has been about like a 30-minute rant. I didn't expect it to go this long. It's just that there's so much in regards to it. I think I touched on almost everything, but yeah, this is going to affect a lot of shit with the games industry, and it might affect pricing with stuff in general. So it's really bad. And if you care about where the industry is going, if you care about like even if you are a Nintendo fan, like you would want them to succeed. You would want them to be better. And you would want them to not basically dig themselves into a hole or a grave. I mean, the fact that the pre-orders sold out is ridiculous, although I think a lot of that is scalpers that bought it. And I hope it's not like these Nintendo fans that just excuse everything or like, well, I don't like this, but I'm gonna buy it anyways. It's like I hope it's not as much of those people, and I hope more of it was scalpers. And I'm sure part of it too is the fact that Nintendo's known for creating this artificial scarcity, so I'm sure that's part of it too. But I digress. I've ragged on them more than enough, and or well, I mean, you never really could do it enough when it comes to Nintendo. But fuck them, and fuck the diehard. Like if you're a diehard fanboy that defends everything that they do, like if you're just a fan that you don't agree with this, but you like some of their games, yeah, that's cool and you're cool. But if you're one of those fanboys that you defend everything, including this shit in terms of what they're doing, then fuck you too. Fuck Nintendo and fuck you too if you're that kind of person. But the people that rightfully call out their shit, keep doing it, keep making noise. Like I said, this is going to affect a lot of shit within the games industry, and it's important for people to know about this stuff and be aware. And if you didn't know about it, but you have a pre-order, yeah, I would cancel that pre-order for sure. Like, especially if you didn't know about all this. So, yeah, vote with your wallet as much as possible. It is important. And I guess we'll see what happens with Nintendo. All right. Solar Cat out.